Welcome to BlackUSA.News Morning Show. I'm your host, William Honolulu Jr. Join us as we explore the news and opinions that impact our community. We break down how the major stories have a very personal, local, and racial impact. No topic is off limits, but even if the conversation gets rough, we're always going to keep it real. Greetings and salutations, all my people out there in internet land. I am William Honolulu Jr., and I have the privilege and honor of serving as the host of the Black USA News Morning Show. Great morning to you. Great morning to you. How are you doing? Great morning to you. As always, I want to give a big shout out to the super producer, Kyle Crazy Horse Morgan, and Brandy, and the assistant producer, Brandy Raymar. They do an amazing job of making sure that I am focused. They give me show notes so I don't make mistakes. Well, they know and they patient with me and stuff like that. So I'm so grateful for them. But okay, all right, okay. Show notes. Stay on topic today. Because today we have a great opportunity to talk to one of our friends of the show, a returning guest, recurring guest, if you will, Dr. Jacane Caston, and we're going to talk about community colleges and what we can do as a community to help more of the students in Black communities get through their educational attainment. We talked a little bit about this a few days ago with Dr. Talbot Horsey when we were talking about the value of education and how all of that works. So I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to extend the conversation with Dr. Caston. But before we get to him, want to say a big shout out. And like I told y'all, we're going to be talking about them for a while. Breadcoin. Breadcoin is an organization that really takes, they take coins. They take these minted coins. Let me see if I got a picture of them. Yeah, here's a picture of some of the coins. They take these coins and they distribute them through the community to individuals who have problems with food insecurity. They work with nonprofit organizations, ones that are active in the community, and those organizations vet people who have needs and make sure that the coins get to them. Now, the thing that got me about Breadcoin, because there are a lot of organizations that really focus on helping and addressing hunger and homelessness. The thing that got me about Breadcoin is that the way that they use these coins, it provides an opportunity for people to show up, get food from a restaurant, use the coins, and still maintain their dignity while they have their meal. It is so amazing and phenomenal just to know that people can be there and not have to feel ashamed or to feel stigmatized about their circumstance. So Black USA News is so happy to partner with Breadcoin and all of their vendors. Speaking of vendors, good people support other good people. And looky here, Terra Cafe is one of the supporters of Breadcoin. Terra Cafe is located in Baltimore. I love going to Terra Cafe. Have a great time. The food is amazing. Check them out at terracafebmore.com or hit them up at 410-777-5277. Again, that's 410-777-5277 or terracafebaltimore.com. They're located in Baltimore at the intersection of North Charles and East 25th Street. Yeah, North Charles and East 25th Street. So check them out. They have great food and they're a supporter of Breadcoin, making sure that they're actively engaged in addressing hunger in our community. Big up to BlackUSA.News' entire family of shows. Make sure that you all check out Dear Black Girl on Saturdays at noon, People Over Politics Sunday at 9 a.m., and what other show did I want to tell you all about? Well, you all know to catch the morning show Monday through Friday, 10 to 11 Eastern time. But for those on the West Coast, don't forget, that's what I wanted to tell you all. You all got a morning show too. You all can help Troy Rawlings on Black USA News. He comes on at 9 a.m. Pacific time or noon Eastern Standard. Excuse me, let me get something to drink. All right, I'm looking through my show notes because I don't want to get in trouble because and we be having debrief meetings, and they be saying stuff to me, and I don't know if I like some of it. So I don't want no smoke. Today, we get an opportunity to bring back to you all a really favorite guest on the show, one of my really great friends, Dr. Jakin Caston. Hello, Dr. Caston. Dr. Caston. How you doing, sir? How's it going?
Oh goodness, I'm well, thank you. I was doing a final little last mirror check that you
It's okay. You
having to
look
drop
fine, sir.
in
You look
on me
fine.
with. It's all good.
It's okay. You look fine. That. You're cool. It's good. You got the GQ smoothie look and everything. Like the whole thing is literally picture perfect with the whole background. I appreciate you. I might have to get you to come over here and help me with set design. So,
You know,
so Doc, we might have people who don't know a lot about you. So why don't you tell them a little bit about you and what you do?
so I'm a career educator, a Spanish teacher for about 13 years. I was a reading specialist, assistant principal, and now a principal in a correctional educational facility, an advocate in regards to returning citizens and how to help them to reduce recidivism, how to keep their feet on the street. I'm an advocate for young people, for education and educational empowerment as well. Um, yeah, that's basically it. Teacher by trade, man. It's been 21 years.
Well,
I know that I look like I'm just about 25, but yeah, I've been
absolutely.
doing this thing about 21 years now. So
Okay. So, you straight out of the womb, you became an educator. So let's go ahead with that. But let's talk about you mentioned a couple of things in just your introduction, how you work, how you advocate for returning citizens, and how education and helping others with education has been a mainstay of kind of your professional life. But today, let's talk a little bit about some of your research background. And could you tell the people a little bit about the dissertation that you wrote? We want to talk about that today.
So my research was basically shattering the revolving door of recidivism, and particularly looking at the American Community College and its role with helping to reduce recidivism. What roles do the community college play or should play or have played in the lives of people who were once incarcerated, but they were able to get out of prison and able to stay out of prison for at least 5 years or more.
Okay.
So really looking at how the two how the two community college and returning citizens can work hand in hand in order to reduce them returning back to prison.
Okay. Now I don't know how many people really think about community colleges as an option for returning citizens, because a lot of times when people think about returning citizens, there's this kind of box you put them in, like
Sure.
they're part of our society, but kind of not. We rely on their families and their local communities to support them, but we really, at least in my experience, there have been kind of patchwork opportunities to try to integrate them back into society. And education, I remember, hell, when I was growing up, I remember one of the biggest fights in the 80s was about prisoners getting degrees in college. I mean, while they're incarcerated and getting opportunities to use Pell Grants and things like that. I remember that was a huge issue because people were like, well, once you become a criminal, you don't deserve rights. And so what did you find about the community college, the potential at least for the community college's role in working with returning citizens?
Well, I believe the community college is not only for the returning citizens, but it's for you and I. It's for anyone who lives within the community of the community college, And I have to give my personal narrative. I'm a community college graduate myself, J. Sargent Reynolds Community College. So coming straight out of
Wait. What was the name of it?
J. Sargent Reynolds Community College.
Big up to J. Sargent Reynolds Community College, because again, whenever there is somebody or some organization that has touched our lives and improved it, we want to make sure we give them their flowers at the time. So big ups.
Yes, indeed. So I had graduated. I was a senior in high school, and I was very popular in high school. I was really into popularity, having fun, and being, known by the masses, and didn't realize that none of that was a requirement for college entry. So all the colleges that I had applied to, just being real with you, I was denied access to. I was told that I didn't have the grades, I didn't have the extracurricular background that was needed, et cetera, et cetera. So I really recall getting about two 2 or 3 rejection letters. So I went and told my mom, I will just, I'm 18 years old now, so I'll just do what I saw coming up. I'll just sell drugs in order to make a living, because I definitely knew that, me working my little part-time job at McDonald's wasn't going to give me a livable wage for me to be able to live comfortable like I wanted to live in my future, where I saw myself and my vision for my life, So my mom, who at the time I had already graduated from high school, she had taken my high school diploma and said, "Look, I done got you to the 12th grade. The rest is on you, brother. You got to do it on your own, son."
That is a very common experience for a lot of people in the African American community. At 18, all support ends. Either you work and support yourself, or we might help, or you go to school and we might help. But it is somehow 18. Not that I've lived on my own at all or had any of these experiences, but somehow magically now I am capable of adulting full on my own.
Sure. And knowing how my mom is, she's an iron fist type of ruler, so for her, I took that literal when she said that to me, so it was like, oh, I don't know what else to do. I don't know any other options. And amazingly, I'll never forget, that was maybe a Thursday or Friday. And the Monday of that next week, my mom took me to J. Sergeant Reynolds Community College. She stood in the line for me to go through the application and registration process. She shared with me that definitely was going to be it. The rest was on my own, for me to get myself there, for me to figure it out. And that's what happened. I had a great career there. I learned how to self-advise there. I learned the organization of college, which messes a lot of people up, knowing who to talk to for financial aid, knowing how to register for classes, how to create a schedule, how to lean on a cohort and friends, because I was actually a part of, I was standing in the line being my colorful self, and this woman, white lady, actually Miss Wolf was her name. She saw me and she said, "I have the perfect program for this young man." It was called the Baccalaureate Transition Program, which was for at-risk youth, which is so funny because I didn't realize that I was an at-risk youth until many years later, that I fell in the mold of, at-risk youth, and
right. Those people. Those people. You could tell who they are. Not me.
Yeah.
I'm a good Christian boy. I do the right thing, but yeah, no.
Exactly. So with that, she selected me to be a part of this cohort. So it was just sort of serendipitous how all of those things just sort of came to play with me being there, making people laugh and just being my 18-year-old self, just, I really don't want to be here. I could be doing something else. Mom, I told you I was going to go sell drugs. I'm good. So, so it caused me to get in this cohort of people, who they sort of groomed us, and they taught us about the organization of college. They taught us the importance of socialization in college as well. How that was an important component in extracurricular activities and et cetera, et cetera. And I was able to, so they took us around college tours for us to see all the different type of colleges we could attend, just to make sure that we were successful,
Mm-hmm.
And so I credit a lot of my success to the American Community College, because even when I transitioned from the community college to what they call traditional college, or an elite college, Virginia Commonwealth University, I was able to be self-advised. I never had to use the advisors. I knew what to do. I knew how to get things done because I had been prepared, And it's amazing because I think of the negative connotation that community college have with so many of us, and even myself. I didn't want to go to a community college. We call that the 13th grade, and when I started studying and researching the American Community College, it was funny because we think that that's something that's made up in jest, but that's actually a research term that a lot of people have called community college. Is actually the 13th grade. So knowing and understanding that, it was because of my successes, I have to attribute it to the community college. And I'm like, wait a minute, we have to work to erase this negative connotation of what it means to go to the community college, because a lot of people needed it. I needed it. Being realistic with myself now, had I gone into a 4-year college directly from college, I would have been lost in the sauce, because I would have been too much into the social aspect of college, that I wouldn't have been successful, because I would have been away from my parents. I would have been on campus. I would have been having fun, and school would not have mattered. That would have been second or possibly third for me. But it helped me to be able to navigate the system, the organization structure of college, So I think that community colleges are dope for anyone who is not sure that college is something that they want to do, for people who don't have the money to possibly attend a traditional 4-year institution at first, or for people who feel that a 4-year education isn't what they want. The community college offers an array of classes and certifications and certificates that one can get that does not take 4 years, but can still make sure that you have a very comfortable life. So I think that, in America, we have to return back to looking at those as viable first options, when we're thinking about, colleges. And for students who may not receive scholarships and things and are looking for a way to come out as debt-free as possible, that's an option when you're thinking about the future, because as we can see, paying back student loans can be a mother, and not a mother who cares for you, every time that, so I think that those are things that we need to begin to think about when we're talking to people in general about going to school, helping people to understand, that everyone gets accepted there. So you don't even have to have the pressure of high SAT scores or having a 4.0 GPA or scholarship. A lot of times the funding that you're going to be allowed to get, you talked about the Pell Grant and other type of grant, federal subsidies that can help to offset that cost for you as you're trying to figure out if this is the place and the space for you to be. And that brings to the returning citizens. I speak very vocal of that. The community colleges traditionally have been to serve the communities that they are in. And a lot of the ones that are in urban areas, we know that 1 out of every 3 Black individual, or 1 out of 9 Americans, period, let's just go there, have been incarcerated. So where these community colleges are landing, it is partly their responsibility to make sure that these people in these communities have a place that they can go and be educated. And let's just be real. A lot of these college programs you take, that come into the prison, you're only as good as the number while you're in prison. A lot of times once you get out, where do you
say that again?
You're only good to them while you're in prison.
Oh, gotcha.
Meaning once you get out, you're not helping their prison numbers for this prison program. You're now a returning citizen that we're a little uncomfortable possibly with you coming on campus. It was different.
Oh, wow.
When we brought the campus to you, but now that you're out, do we necessarily want you to be here?
Oh, that's a whole. But my thing is, I can't imagine like the betrayal that I would feel if I didn't know that was the game. Where like while we're behind, oh my God, that's these traumas and stuff. Where like the secret friend or the side, like that is all of that, and to come back into, especially if you were doing well in the school and you start feeling good about it, and then to hit that.
Yeah.
When you get there, I honestly, with all the other pressures going on, I couldn't imagine trying to get through that. Honestly, that would make me angry. I would cuss everybody out. Oh, well, I would cuss everybody out anyway. Now that I think about it, but in that situation, I feel justified.
Yeah, and that's just real talk, So it's sort of disheartening for men, especially if you didn't get a lot of credits. They actually recommend, well, before you come to our institution, how about you go to community college first? You know what I'm saying? So even they know the benefit of the community college or how it can be utilized. But for many, those people don't want to go to a community college. They want to continue at the school that they began, their academic trajectory at.
Right.
So I just think that it will be beneficial, especially looking at, I looked at a clip that you sent to me that was talking about the American Community College and particularly black men and how the enrollment is down 19%.
Ooh, yeah.
I think 2019, and looking for creative ways.
No. Black enrollment for Black men is down 21% since 2019. It's 21%.
Oh, it's 21%. Okay. Yeah. So down 21%. What are some creative ways to get people to, and this was particularly talking about the American Community College as well. So how can we increase this enrollment? And I think that's a population that a lot of people, we forget about. It's a forgotten population, even with going inside the prison and then creating a pipeline from in there to when the men get out, in order to help them. Because one of the things that my research showed with the men who completed some type of education at the community college, that was part of the secret sauce that helped them to stay out. when we start looking at some of those criminogenic factors that play a role in people staying out, education is one of those areas that if people have increased education, they're
Mhm.
less likely to return. And part of it is because they learn socialization. They learn how to talk to people who are different than themselves. That was some of what my research found. You know, they find the support in community from attending school. They also learn grit and perseverance from being in school. They learn anger management and effective communication, how to talk to people from attending these community colleges. So these are some of the benefits in regards to this criminogenic factor
Yeah.
of education, and particularly looking at the American Community College, why it would be important to sort of grab these men up to help them to be able to be productive citizens in a democratic society.
And so one of the things that you continue to talk about and to touch on, even when you're talking about your own experience, is this idea of socialization. It's really interesting that even off camera, as we've talked about the benefits of community college education, we start off with the education is a given. Like, 1+1 = 2, no matter whether you're at Harvard or you're at Baltimore City Community College. If 1+1 is equal to 2. But one of the things that you have mentioned several times, and also Dr. Talbert Horsey, Wes Moore, everybody I've talked to about this, they focus in on the socialization aspect. It's so funny. It's the community part in the community college that most people talk about the benefits. Because as you're running it down, when you talked about how the community college has shifted your trajectory, you talked about the quality of education one time. But everything, and that's my point. That is the benefit of it right there. It is that even for people who do not believe themselves to be at risk, for those who may be shy or those who may be uncertain, there are systems at most community colleges that are designed for that. Let's not get it twisted. From my experience, most of the 4-year universities, especially the more elite, it is a hazing ritual. Once you get in, it is a hazing ritual to get in. When let's see your SATs, come to the meeting, you need to have interviews. What are your GPA? Make sure you get 55,000 letters of recommendation. And how much community service have you done? Yes, big brother Harvard. And then once you get in, get your Harvard letters, and then it's like, all right, now just here's a tutor for you, go ahead and get it done. But we don't recognize that places like the community colleges, if we're going to continue with the college example, okay, the college social example, the community college is more like the Black Student Union. There's an application, but you ain't got a pledge. Like they let you in, and it's designed specifically to help a very targeted population of the very targeted group of the larger population be successful. And that's what it sounds to me like community colleges do. The program that you talked about is amazing. And I encourage anybody out there, if you have kids that are going to school, or if you're trying to go back to school yourself, or if you're going to school for the first time, because, while I am an old man, I do have a few younger audience members. So y'all too, you're not left out. But really take a look at the student support services that are on your campus, because as you start to hear all of the guests that are coming and talking about their benefit, a lot of it has to do with the support. How do you make friends? How do you get to learn about where financial aid is? You know what messed me up when I sent my son to school? What the hell is a bursar? Where's a bursar? What is a bursar? Because he had to go get a check from the bursar. And I was like, well, who the hell is a bursar? But that is, again, that's a word. It's at certain universities means like accounts payable. My school, I think it was like student accounts or whatever. But it was a bursar, and I was like, oh, hell. I didn't know I was a grown man with 3 degrees by that time, and I didn't know what to do with that word.
Wow.
And so really I think what you said makes perfect sense, and talking about the socialization. So if we're going to talk about the socialization and kind of anchoring back into your research, when we talk about socializing returning citizens, and we talk about the community college process, it's not reading through what you've written. There's going to be some modifications that need to be made, and some socialization to socialize the returning citizens to college life, and also some socialization to getting the college environment to be more accepting and receptive to the returning citizens. So can you talk a little bit about what that process would look like?
Sure. So, one of the things that one of the men talked about that I interviewed a lot was recognizing that in class, when someone says something that's different than what you believe or something that you don't necessarily like, he said, I couldn't just tell him, meet me on the parking lot at 3 o'clock and I'm going to kick your ass. I had to realize how to be able to speak what was frustrating me in words. I had to be taught that. I had to learn to not take things personal, to understand that this is just a collegiate debate. This is how people grow. This is how iron sharpens iron. When he was so accustomed to, if you don't like what I say, I beat you up, I fight you, and then
that's how we figure out who's
what
right.
it is. Exactly.
Whoever's standing at the end, that's who's right.
Exactly. But a lot of times we find with a lot of returning citizens, they're very open to wanting to receive help, because most of the time they come out not wanting to return to prison, which I like to call hell on earth. So but a lot of times they have no other option because there's no one to sort of help to show them the way. And I think that a lot of the times what the colleges need for the people that are working there is for people to not be to realize their biases with working with these people, because you're made to be afraid, to think that they all are these they created these super egregious crimes, and there are some who have, but a lot of times we're finding even the ones who want to return to school, most of the time are what we call, they have low factors that would attribute to them returning back to prison.
Right.
A lot of times that's petty crimes such as marijuana charges or crack cocaine charges for having drug possession with the intent to distribute, etc., etc. So helping people to deal with their biases, helping people to not look at them like they have three heads on their shoulders because they find out that they're a convicted felon, and not making them feel isolated or making them feel uncomfortable with their situation. Because a lot of times when you're made to feel uncomfortable, that's when you are not going to be successful. That's when you're not going to want to be a part of. So just making sure that when people know these things, that you're dealing with people who are comfortable to work with this population and who knows how to deal with this population, who knows how to keep it real with this population, because that's something that they need for you to really keep it real with them and to be 100% transparent as to the benefits of being in the community college, helping them to keep that at the forefront of their mind, so they can begin to be comfortable with you. Another participant in my research shared, he was so amazed when he thought he was going to have to drop out of the culinary program because he could no longer trying to get to school every day was driving him crazy. He lived in the county, but he wanted to attend actually J. Sergeant Reynolds back home in Richmond. And it was too much, but because of the program he was in, and because he was comfortable enough with a professor who taught in his department, he felt comfortable enough to share that, so much so that the professor extended himself to him to be able to pick him up, to bring him to school every day, and he attributes that to his success because he said up until that time, he believed that everyone was against him, that no one was really for him. No one wanted to see him be successful. No one wanted to offer him any benefits or amenities to have a sweeter life. And this one gesture helped to change the paradigm of his thinking, and that was really amazing to hear that, so just to make sure that people are operating under kindness, and that we're dealing with humans still, even though they've paid their debt to society. And a lot of them who find themselves there want to be there. That you don't have to go to school as a part of your parole and probation. That is something that you select to do. So, these are the people who we should be trying to groom, who are there, who can end up being, some of your best students, who go on to do great things, because now this guy is, he works at one of the 5-star, I believe it's Morton Steakhouse back home in Richmond, Virginia, and one of the things that makes him feel so excited is I'm a convicted felon. I'm a returning citizen, but I have keys to this place to be able to get in. They entrust me to cook this food. They entrust me to be able to get in and to prepare and to prep and etc. And that's really something that was grand for this participant, and again, the programs need to be set up. I think like the basic orientation, the college needs to make sure that they understand the organizational structure, what should be them, because they're just leaving from prison, which is very organized. It's a very structured. You can't come and for example, as a principal in a prison, you can't just walk into my office. There's a system that you have to go through and several people that you have to go through in order to get to me directly,
Right.
So helping them to understand, who do you talk to in the bursar's office, helping them to understand. A lot of times, they fight because they don't already have basic vocabulary. So, they're not going to have the jargon for
right.
To become a
FAFSA. A FAFSA. What's a FAFSA?
Exactly. You know what I'm saying? Helping them to understand that process, what it looks like, helping them to understand the difference between a grant and a loan. Because if you take all of these loans out, you know what I'm saying? You're going to be mad at Biden because he didn't pardon as much as you thought he was going to,
Right.
So helping them to understand what that is, helping them to understand what it's like to, to create a schedule, and what the importance of the GPA and how to withdraw before time, so that you're not with an F, and all of those different processes, they need to be oriented into being a student or academician, are some things that the colleges can be doing in order to sort of help them out, and to just offer themselves to them to be finding out what supports they need. Because you'll find that was another issue with a lot of the men. A lot of them had transportation issues. How do I get to back and forth to school? But something that helped the guy that I interviewed up in New York City, he was excited that they gave him, what I think they call them Metro up there, or whatever.
A Metro card, yeah, a Metro card.
Them to ride the subway every day. You know what I'm saying? He talked about how that alleviated so much unnecessary stress off of him, because now he didn't have to, make his own way to get to and fro. So just making sure that those amenities or those resources that are for students, that people are sharing that type of stuff with these people, you know what I'm saying, to help to eliminate the excuses. And a lot of times we find the schools have these resources that are going wasted because no one are privy to them, and they're not making it their business to get out there to find out who need them in order to be able to share the resources and the tools that are needed for people to be successful.
Right. And some of that also has to do with this idea that I don't have lived experience with this population, so I don't even know how to talk to them. I remember at one of the companies that I was doing some marketing for, they were talking about how they weren't getting in touch with certain demographics. And I was like, well, let's talk to them. How do you send information out? And talked to one of their customers, or somebody who should be a customer, and was asking, how did they find out about them? And they were like, well, I didn't know they were having this stuff. I was like, but they put this stuff out regularly. It's like, well, where? It's like, well, they do it through Facebook, email. Oh, if it's to sell something, it goes in my spam, and I'm not on Facebook like that. Boom. Now, when we shifted, I think she was on Instagram or something like that. When we shifted to Instagram, she had more engagement with them. But it's because that they didn't know them. And so I think it kind of falls to people like us who are aware of some of the challenges that people re-entering society and those who are trying to get into education, what they're going through, so that we can help them bridge that gap. So again, I commend you for all the stuff that you're doing, but let's talk a little bit more about what we can do to help. You talk about what community colleges can do, but you talked about it a lot more on how they can help the returning citizen acclimate to the culture. Let's talk a little bit about what the community colleges themselves can do to transform their culture to one that is welcoming to returning citizens. So, like, tell me some of the things that in your research you found that people said was the most helpful. You mentioned it for about one of your subjects earlier, but you can just share some of that kind of stuff, because we want to provide some guidance to community colleges and advocates in community colleges, what they can do to be more helpful.
Academic advising was one of the common things. Having someone there who could advise them on the process what it looks like and how, but what I found though, for most of them, it wasn't from a formal academic advising process. It actually happened from informal culture, from realizing that there were a professor or someone at the school who took to them, or they to that professor who they were then comfortable with in order to begin to share. So I think at these institutions and anywhere, I think, we need to begin to create a culture of kindness, just where people are not too busy, where people are just not so stuck on their own agenda that we forget to just be kind, that we forget to just listen, to be able to, and even we can't help to be able to point people to the resources or to the people who actually can. So a lot of times, because a lot of times the community college and the colleges have all these wonderful things in place. But again, you talk about the resource center. It wasn't until I was in a doctorate degree that I realized, oh my goodness, I could have went to a resource center and found out things about tutoring and things of that nature, but I never utilized those resources. But really having people who will share or connect them, or someone like Miss Wolf, when I was at the school, she could have just walked past and say, this is just a little immature, little 18-year-old young adult, and kept walking. But she knew the program. She could recommend me for the baccalaureate transition program. And that's what she did. She was excited to talk to my mom. She was excited to share with me. I was excited to hear about all these free trips I would go on and how they always, I had never been on a train. So we rode the train to every school that we went to, up and down the East Coast. So I was excited about it. She sold it to me, when she could have just ignored me and kept it moving. But she didn't. So we have to create begin with our hiring practices, really hiring people who are really about educating the masses, and I hate to say it like this, but by any means necessary. It was obviously they didn't have the numbers and they needed more people. So she heard me and my mother and me going back and forth with all the people in the line. So she thought it not robbery to share with me to get into this program. And then she cut out a lot of the rigmarole to get me in the program. I didn't have to go through the interview. I didn't have to go through the sign up, because she, was the one who wrote the grant. So the woman who was overseeing it, she took me directly there, and I became a part of. So being able, if you can cut corners for people to help them, because that made me become a loyalist to her, because she really looked out for me. I want to be successful. I want to, to do well, and knowing that I could have them to have my corner with questions and things, that I have them in my corner to answer questions and about concerns and issues that I had, that really, really helped me. You know what I'm saying? So really providing a space that is a safe space where people can talk and not feel like, that is not going to be retaliatory, that someone is not going to be out to get them or to harm them. It really messed me up at 18, because we were staging walkouts and teachers' classes, because our cohort, they kind of had us taking the same classes. I'll never forget a biology teacher who we just felt had some unfair practices towards a certain group of students. So that, we rallied and got those certain groups of students all together, and we all walked out to show that if we're not here, you won't have a class. So it was those sort of even those type of advocacy things that I learned, and it was an open space. We ended up being able to get the ear of the dean at the school because of how we staged that, and our demands were heard. So it showed us as students, oh wow, the power.
You have a voice.
We have a voice, the power of coming together. It couldn't just be one or two of us. I mean, it was every individual who saw the discrepancies, or who saw the issues that was happening. We joined together in order to make the situation better, So just making sure it's safe spaces where people feel comfortable to share, where people feel comfortable to be vulnerable, to share that they don't know, and not made to feel less than, but equal to.
Yes,
I like that. See that little math.
I throw a little math in there.
Not less than, but equal to or greater than. Than individuals, because it'll really help. And these are the things that helped me as a subject, but also these other subjects. That informal culture of academic advising, someone who had already gone through who was willing to share their story and their testament in regards as to how they made it through.
One of the things that you mentioned before, with the concepts of some of the stigmas on campuses, I think for me, at least, well, from my perspective, I think that some of the challenges that there are people who believe that once you go to jail, you have forfeited the right to social graces. There are also another group of people who believe that if you have done something to go to jail one time, you will probably do it again, because they hear the words about recidivism and people talk about high rates. But what they don't talk about is that most of the people that go to prison get out. Most of them do not go back. And so these are the same people that they're comfortable saying the bad apple argument with when you have police officers that kill unarmed minorities or unarmed people of color. But somehow that argument does not play the same way when it comes to returning citizens. If the majority of them don't recidivate.
No. So I'm sorry. Most of them do.
Okay.
75% of them do go back. But
How do you define? Are you talking about prison, or are you talking about prison and jail?
Most 75% of them reoffend and end up back in prison within 5 years.
Okay, I want to take a look at that, because the way that I understood it is that if you look at people who have been, especially like in Maryland, the ones who have been convicted and sent to prison, that 18 months or more, that's a different number than the 18 months or less. And when you add all of those numbers together, it's down that the majority of people who go to jail, like who get locked up in Harford County, Howard County, go to those jails, the majority of those people don't come back. But those people also have criminal records.
Yeah, and that was looking more so at the federal level too, with the 75%. But a lot of times they're returning because of that negative connotation.
Absolutely.
That you're speaking of, be reformed, that people don't learn their lessons. Well, a lot of times they're forced back because people won't hire them. That's something else I found in the literary review, that people are willing to hire people who've been out of job for years. They're willing to hire people from low economical backgrounds, but a very few are willing to hire people that are convicted felons.
Right.
You know, and that's part of the issue as to why they return, because they can't find the support, or no one is willing to take the chance with them. You know, and you got to think, you know, we're talking about, you know, 1 out of 3 of the population, American population, is African American. There's already so many strikes against those people as well. And now you're adding an F on their life report card, which I call it, which is a felon. You know, so now you have even less chances, even less people who are willing to give you a shot, you know. So it makes it you know, more viable for you to return back to the streets to sell drugs, or for you to go back to robbing and doing what it was that you breaking and entering, because, you know, you have no way to survive, you know, and you can't really do it when you owe child support, you owe all types of fines and penalties and cash that you're responsible for paying. You have to get your own food, clothes, and shelter, and you're only making $8.50 restocking at Aldi's.
Right. That's real.
You know, yeah, it's very real, you know, and that's what ends up happening, you know. So they revert back to selling drugs, they revert back to doing the things that they know that's going to make them quick money, even though they're not thinking about the consequences that's going to come back. Or a lot of times too, a lot of them get the probation and parole and probation violations, because again, the transportation, they couldn't show up to their weekly or monthly meetings, or they're not meeting the obligations, you know. Again, sometimes drug treatment, you know, again, that being, you know, pissed and having THC in their urine. Now you have a very strict parole officer who says, well, we said nothing, we said complete abstinence. There's THC, there's alcohol, so now you're going back. So a lot of those, you know, and a lot of times we have to remember, particularly here in Maryland, a lot of them get out with still a lot of time over their head. So if they're ever to get back in trouble, they have to serve that time plus the
Right.
new time that they may get from the court of law as well. You know what I'm saying? So it's so many factors that play into that. You know what I'm saying? Then we always get into the stigma. Even myself, I was horrified of murderers. I'm just going to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
And it took someone when I was, and it was so amazing because the very thing that I was afraid of, it seems like those were all the people who would come to me for advice, and people who wanted to change their lives, and then it would come out some kind of way, as to what their charges were. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how do I deal with my personal bias, to still be able to offer education to these people, to still
Right.
be able, because I believe that education can help anyone, because it helped
Right.
me, someone who was undesirable,
Mm-hmm.
so how do I keep this from them just because they committed a crime that I feel is super egregious and you can't return back from, in my opinion,
Right.
but it took someone I work with who say, most of the time these men who they, believe it or not, they murdered who they wanted to murder. They murdered the individual who was, a
Yeah, it wasn't
rival.
just the impulse.
It wasn't an impulse. So it's not you who they wanted to kill, Dr. Caston. It was, the individual who they actually shot and killed, which
It was a
sort of,
decision. Yeah, it wasn't just it was like, no, you have done something, and in my value system, you have forfeited your life, and I now have the opportunity and privilege of taking that from you.
yeah. So that sort of helped me to feel better with that, and I think it's just being realistic. We're dealing with people who we don't know do things all the time. We're dealing with people who just didn't get caught. How many times have, individual who's gotten super drunk and have driven a car? How many
Yep.
times have you seen people get into a fist fight at somewhere? That's assault and battery when you beat someone up. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of things that we're just, we were just lucky to sort of to get away with those things, So a lot of us who may not even be convicted felons still have criminal minds that's always getting over on someone. Con men and women,
I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about my story to that point. When I was in high school, one of my friends, he didn't like his stepfather. So what we did is that we got a hold of some of his stepfather's credit cards and we went on shopping sprees. So this was identity theft and credit card fraud back when they were still rubbing the credit cards on the carbon paper. So we were back there doing that. And literally, the only reason is because somebody advocated for me. He was, because not just me, but all of us, because it's like four of us. So it was like, well, you gonna have to send your kid to jail too, because he said, it was so complicated. But real talk, like, yeah, should have been in jail. That is a felony. Hell, what the hell? But to what you're saying, like, there, but for the grace of God, go on.
Yeah.
Somebody, him being mad at his stepson, or him being pissed, or him not being able to get his money back, could have been enough to start me down that road of moving from at risk to, yeah, you lost the risk. You lost. It's no longer at risk. The risk is, you've met the risk and you've lost. And I would have been that person. I remember when I was working at the Department of Legislative Services, the budget that I reviewed was the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services. And so one of the things that I did is I went out to do some site visits. And I went to North Branch Correctional Institute out in Hagerstown, Maryland. And I was walking through the yard with some of the correctional officers. And I looked over, and out the side of my eye, I saw this guy. And everything about this guy in my peripheral vision looked like my dad. He even had, because it's kind of cold up there, they get the jean jackets. So my dad had a jean jacket like that. His head had the little circle George Jefferson crown kind of hair and stuff, like all of this stuff. And I was like, but in that moment, I knew where my dad was. He was at the house, 80 miles away. But when I saw him, and I realized that during the time my dad grew up, any one of those people in his little hick town, the white sheriffs or the white deputy sheriffs, could have made this his life. Him doing nothing. He grew up in a small little town called Cresswell, North Carolina, back in the 40s and 50s and 60s.
Wow.
And I'm talking about during the time where Black people went missing, but then you found them hanging from trees.
Sure. Strange fruit. Exactly.
And so, and for me, because I was one of those, well, if you don't do that, what was it? Right? Don't do the crime if you can't do the time. I grew up on that.
Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah. Sometimes the cops got to get rough to get justice done.
Yeah.
But when I saw that dude, and it hit me that while he wasn't my dad, could have easily been. All of
Mm-hmm.
a sudden, I noticed a change even in the way that I describe the system in my writing, because it moved from being those people to maybe my people.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of experience. And I think that's, what you shared about getting comfortable with people. It was that, hey, guess what? They're people. They're not their crimes.
Yeah.
I
And we
may
have
have
to
murdered
understand
someone.
and see how you were vested because you saw someone as your father. So for me, I become vested because I choose to live in the inner city. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
want these people to decide that they want to come up in my house and rob me. I don't
Because
want you
they
to be
don't have other
walking
options. Yeah.
exactly. So for me, it's personal in that regard because I want to be able to feel safe in my neighborhood. So I want you to not feel that I would be the weaker and now you're coming to my house or you have a gun or a knife to my throat
Right.
demanding that I give you my wallet.
Right.
So there are benefits in making sure that these people have good, decent lives when they get out because but there are a lot of people as you stated who do get out, but those are the forgotten that's the forgotten
Right.
population. No one talks about the people who get out and be successful. And I do know that not only the sex sell, but negativity sells. So
Oh,
no one
absolutely.
focuses on those people who are getting out, who are doing well, who we should be going to ask them, sort of like what I did with my research. What did you do in order to be successful, in order not to return to
Mm-hmm.
prison? You know what I'm saying? So that because we benefit from them being taxpayers versus them being people who are draining from the tax system.
Absolutely. And that's part of the other piece of it too, is like bringing these brothers and sisters back into the fold literally just makes us all better. Like our society is really defined by the least of us. And if we turn our back on people because they've made mistakes, because like you pointed out, how many of us just didn't get caught? I know there were a couple of times after I got home, I look back, I was like, I probably should have drove.
Yeah.
There been to that point, there've been a couple of times where, yeah, speeding, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like there've been a couple of times. Hell, I remember one time when I was driving when I didn't realize my license was suspended. I could
Yeah.
have got popped on that and gone straight to jail, especially you get picked up in another state.
Exactly.
And in some of the communities that we live in, going to jail, especially lockup, that's just a regular occurrence. I remember there were these two dudes who were talking outside. And I can't remember where we were, but they were just, kind of talking to each other on the porch. Oh, that's what we were. I was at a friend's house. And they were talking to each other across their porch. And one of them was like, he was talking about something. He's like, yeah, but I've never been to jail. I mean, I've been to like BCDC, not BC, yeah, BCDC for lockup, but like everybody goes there. In his world, it is part of just what you do as a black guy in Baltimore that eventually you'll be taken down to central booking. You'll be harassed, left there for a couple hours or a day or two, and then you'll come back. That's just what happens. And I was like, damn. Like, not that you would be convicted, it's just something that's going to happen. And I was like, he has been so socialized to that being normal.
Wow. Yeah, and that's sort of our society. I mean, again, 1 out of 9 Americans are going to have some type of encounter with, you know, the criminal justice system. It's just, it's realistic, and in America, we arrest a quarter of our population, you know what I'm saying? One of the
Mm-hmm.
world's superpowers and richest places on the earth, incarcerate almost a quarter of its people.
Right. Yeah, a quarter of the people that are incarcerated around the world are in the friggin' United States. That is amazing to me. But and you know what? It's not amazing. It is sad, but it makes perfect sense. Our entire system has been built on free or reduced price labor. It has been built on theft. And the best theft around is to steal somebody's time. Because there's like, you could take my money, but guess what? I might be able to make that back.
Yeah.
You tie me up for an hour, there is literally never, no matter how long I live, I will never get that hour back. So as we can take people out, as the system takes people out of circulation and then puts this negative connotation and puts them back into circulation, especially when you look at the disproportionate arrests and convictions out of certain populations, it becomes part of the economic system that this works. Neo-slavery. You know what? So, hey, how about this? You know what? You and I are going to keep talking about reentry because I see how what's about to happen, and it happens every time we get to like 5 minutes left, and then a whole new topic. Because what I want to get to then is to talk about the you and the work that you do is more for reform and rehabilitation, and a lot of what the rest of the system is designed around is punishment and that piece. And those pieces conflict very significantly when you're talking about preparing a returning citizen, and also about how the operation goes. And so when you put that in the economic context, then I think we should have a conversation about the neo-slavery through the prison industrial complex.
Oh, you deep there.
Because, like, again, when slavery was abolished, all of a sudden the same dudes that were just slave catchers and they had the slave catcher badge, they scratched slave catcher out and put sheriff underneath.
And then began to make it illegal for you not to have a job.
So there was I was reading this article about how they how. And see, again, we right here about to start this whole damn conversation up. I see it happening. But we gonna talk about this, about how criminal laws have been utilized as economic tools against Black people. How when Black women, there was a mandatory school attendance law in one place down south because Black women were staying home and they needed them to be in their workforce. So they were homeschooling their kids. And they were like, no, you all have to go to work, so nobody can homeschool their kids. You have to go through all of this to homeschool, but we need you all back out at work. So
wow.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that. That's the next show. The next show is neo-slavery. We'll come up with something catchier offline, but right now it's industrial complex. Okay. Brother, as always, it has been an amazing show. You have blessed us with with a wealth of knowledge. Make sure that I get a link to your published dissertation so that I can make sure that everybody can get access a copy of it if you choose. I know some of y'all want them to pay for it, so I don't know which one you are, but if you're comfortable sharing a link with them, we'll make sure that that's included along with some other information and in the not comments, in the description. Is that cool?
That's cool. Thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this, to be able to just have a conversation about something that I really enjoy, education, and really helping people, particularly Black and brown people, because we when we know better, we must do better. And I feel that it's a responsibility for us to begin to share and to begin to do what we can in order to keep us forging forward, even when all the odds are seemingly against us. So thank you so very much for allowing me to come and sit and talk with you, man, and talk with the people who watch this platform. I think it's really dope what you're doing. I appreciate you for thinking in that robbery to include me and to have me on here to talk and to share a little bit of what it is that I'm doing and my knowledge with those on this platform. So thank you so very much. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely, brother. I need to make sure that all the good people out here know the good people I know. All right, man. We'll see you next time you come through, and I'll give you a call later so we can talk about the next show.
Please do.
Peace, bro. I told y'all I know dope people. Again, I don't even, that might just have to be, we might have to just change the name of the show to William Knows Dope People, and he be bringing them to y'all. So I am so happy, and I'm looking forward to some of the things that I can do to help address kind of the negative outcomes that many of our brothers and sisters are facing as they come back home. Yeah. We're gonna do that too. And you know what will happen? We'll be black when we do it, and we'll be black tomorrow. Oh wait, let's because that was, when you try to be smooth and it doesn't go well and things happen.